There's one truth about success that I've seen come true over and over and over again in my life and in the lives of others that I want to share with you all through a story. We have Chris. He's a young 23-year-old man who wants to live in the big city. Now, this is not your average dream. He has dreamed about this since he was 3 years old when he first found out about the city from his parents. They used to tell him that the city was this awesome place. There were great places to eat, places to go out, amazing sights to see, and of course, tons of pretty girls. He wanted to be a part of this dream lifestyle after growing up in the countryside. At the time, he was not making enough money for his family to survive. With his mom and dad unable to work, he knew he needed to make money elsewhere. And facing the chance of starvation and death for his family, he decided to get up and venture out to the city. He heard that jobs you have in the city pay way more than the ones in the countryside. And this was only hearsay, and he was unsure that this would be true. Also, he did not know of anyone who actually went to the city from his own town. He has only heard stories and the path was unclear. But that very next day, he packed his belongings and headed out to find the city. He first is hit with a heavy fog, so he cannot see very far in front of him. Instead, he can only see the first few steps there. He has always been afraid of the unknown and going out into the fog, an area where he had no idea what was ahead of him. And he was scared. But he was facing this impending starvation. He knew he had no choice other than to move forward. After traveling for a few days and the fog still heavily blocking his vision, he comes up on this small village where there is not one person that speaks his language. He only knew how to speak English, and not knowing where to go, he needed something to eat. He ended up staying in the town, starting to pick up their language, which was Spanish. There he stayed for 2 months, making friends, making a little money at the restaurant he started working at. He was finally able to speak to ask people about the city he was planning on going to. And it turns out that the head chef at the restaurant used to cook in the city and was able to describe to him which direction to go next. So he continues on his journey, only to be stopped again. Slowly starving himself, he enters into a new town that he was passing by. And this town actually had a bunch of factories. He walked up to a few of them and was able to get one of them to give him a temporary job. He knew nothing about manufacturing and working in a factory, but he knew he had to dive into the unknown and figure out how to survive. He would create parts and then at the end of the day had to deliver them to the people in the town. At the end of the day, he would take the parts to different homes that he had to deliver to. And he would ask the person who answered the door if they knew how to get to the big city. Days and weeks passed by, nothing happened. And on his 43rd day of working at the factory though, this all changed. He delivered to someone named Josh, who actually had been to the city one time and said that he was going there next week and that he could try to take him there. This was the break he was finally looking for, but again, he was unsure if he should go with this person. After all, he started to like the job at the factory. He was comfortable there, and he was tired of not making money to support his family and going days without food. Also, the person was there only one time, and how sure was he that he could actually take him there? But he could not let that dream go, so he ultimately agreed and took the chance. The following Wednesday, they started on their journey through the heavy fog towards the city. They started in for a full week. Josh had told Chris that he thought he went the right way, and it had been hard to see in the fog. They tried every which way Josh thought he knew how. That following Wednesday night, they ran out of food and water and they prepared for their trip. They agreed that they would have to go back to their village and give up on the city for now. That night, they woke up in the morning, and the first thing they noticed is that the fog cleared up, and in the distance, they see the big city. They needed this. They decided to push forward, and by the end of that night, they made it to the city. Once he's in the city, he talks to some of the first few people he met, who happened to be hiring. They needed someone to run their factory of Spanish workers who made handcraft dinner plates for high-end restaurants in the city. Luckily, with his experience, he picked up on his trip, and he fit the role perfectly. Now, He never was the head of the factory before, but he knew he could handle the unknown. He was not someone who was afraid of the unknown anymore. And with his new job, he was able to make the money he needed for his family to survive and thrive. Now, why did I tell you this? Not to teach you about moving to a city. Instead, the way I see achieving your goals in life is like a fog. You have a clear picture of what the end goal looks like in your head, and you can clearly see the first steps ahead of you. But nothing ever goes exactly to plan. So what do? You keep moving forward, one step at a time. And as you move through the fog, life presents you with a new challenge you might need to master. And those skills prepare you for your end goal. So, stop waiting for every single damn thing to be planned out, because it never will be. Planning is great, but to an extent. Once you have a base plan, start taking action. And as you take action, you will learn to adapt your plan to fit the steps in the fog you have uncovered.